Her name was Maya Reed, 34 years old, and for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. Across from her sat her brand new husband, Adrian Blackwell. Husband. Even in her thoughts, the word felt warm and unreal. They'd been married for just 12 days, a small courthouse ceremony, only a few close colleagues and 2 of Adrian's relatives. No fancy hall, no ball gown, but it had been genuine, heartfelt, intimate. And now they were finally celebrating with their first real romantic dinner in the most expensive restaurant in the city, the Silver Elm. "Maya, you're doing that thing again," Adrian said, smiling slightly. She blinked. "What thing?" He leaned forward, his hazel eyes soft in the warm glow. "Staring at me and smiling like I just handed you the moon. It's dangerously flattering." She laughed, heat rushing to her cheeks. "Maybe you did." The truth was, after the last few years, Adrian really had felt like a miracle. When her dad died 3 years ago and her mom passed from a stroke a year after that, Maya had been left with her parents' tiny apartment, her job, and silence. She poured everything into her work as the manager and head designer of a small independent bookstore, Ink and Ivy, where she created the displays that made readers stop and stare. She loved that place. The smell of paper and coffee, the creak of old wooden floors. But at night, in her parents' old apartment, the quiet felt heavy. Then, one rainy Thursday, Adrian Blackwell had walked into the bookstore. Tall, immaculate charcoal coat, a subtle watch that screamed expensive to anyone who knew. He'd asked for a book on urban planning and ended up staying an hour talking to her about favorite novels, bad movie adaptations, and how cities are living organisms. He came back the next day, and the next, always with that disarming smile, always listening more than he spoke, always remembering the small things about her. He didn't bring cliché roses. He brought her first editions, old bookmarks, and once a tiny potted fern because she'd mentioned she killed every plant she owned. "You know," he said now, taking her hand over the table, "when I first came into your bookstore, I just wanted a book. I didn't realize I'd walk out with a future." She chuckled. "Is that your line? Do you use that on all the store managers you seduce?" "Only the one who color coordinates paperbacks like a religious ritual," he replied. His hand was warm and steady. His presence always felt reassuring. Everything about him screamed reliable, from the way he carried himself to the way everyone seemed to respect him. And why wouldn't they? He worked with city infrastructure projects, consulting with a lot of departments, including the City Assets and Property Office. His aunt, Cassandra Blackwell, was practically royalty in the city, Deputy Commissioner of Municipal Assets. People spoke about her with a mix of admiration and fear. When Maya had first met her, she'd felt intimidated, but Cassandra had hugged her like family and called her dear. "It still feels strange," Maya admitted, swirling the champagne in her glass. "Being a Blackwell. Being part of all this." Adrian smiled. "You're not part of all this. All this is lucky to be connected to you." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The waiter refilled their glasses with perfect posture. The restaurant manager, a man in his late 50s with silver hair and a velvet bow tie, had already stopped by twice, speaking mostly to Adrian. "Everything to your satisfaction, Mr. Blackwell?" "Absolutely," Adrian answered with that smooth, unhurried voice. Maya watched how the manager looked at him, with deference, maybe even a hint of fear. It felt strange, but Adrian just moved like someone who belonged in such places. "You spoke to your aunt today?" Maya asked. Adrian nodded, taking a sip of red wine. She's thrilled for us. She keeps asking when you'll finally move into my place so we can start renovating the apartment properly for the next 30 years of our lives, her exact words. Maya smiled faintly. They'd already started some processes. There had been documents, paperwork, registrations, joint accounts, just to simplify everything, Adrian had said. They'd sat on her couch late one night with a stack of papers and some wine, and he'd said, "These are just updates, marital status, co-ownership, boring legal stuff. I'll handle the offices, you just sign where I highlighted. I don't want to drag you to those awful lines." She had been tired, happy, in love. She signed. Now she thought about that and felt a little twinge, but she brushed it away. Suddenly, Adrian's phone buzzed in his inside pocket. He glanced at the screen, and for a moment something dark flickered across his face. Annoyance, or was it irritation? "Sorry, love," he said, pushing his chair back. "I have to take this. It's work. Those contractors are like children with explosives. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Order dessert. Get whatever you want. You liked the lemon tart with berries, right?" He leaned in, kissed her forehead softly, and walked away toward the lobby, phone pressed to his ear. Maya watched him go, feeling that familiar warmth. Even his walk looked confident, in control. Everything is good, she thought. Everything is finally good. She took a deep breath, letting her eyes wander around the restaurant. Crystal glasses clinking, laughter rising and falling like gentle waves, the warm hum of conversation. At the table next to hers, closer than she had noticed before, sat an elderly woman alone. A small cup of tea had gone cold in front of her. She was stirring it absent-mindedly, though it was already empty. The woman's eyes were fixed on Maya. Maya offered her a polite smile, but the woman didn't smile back. Her expression was tight, almost pained. Her eyes were searching Maya's face, as if trying to confirm something. There was something familiar about her. Where had Maya seen her? She squinted. Then it clicked. The woman was a regular customer at Ink and Ivy. She'd come in every few weeks to buy those slim poetry collections no one else touched, always asking for used copies because she liked books with history. She always wore a faded olive coat and carried a canvas bag with tiny embroidered violets. Maya remembered her name from the receipts, Helena Ward. In the bookstore, Helena was always gentle, quiet. She smiled with her eyes and thanked Maya for every recommendation, even if it was just an old copy of Whitman. But now, Helena's face was paper white, her lips trembled, and there was something in her eyes that made Maya's heart trip. Fear. Raw, naked fear. Helena suddenly stood up, her chair scraping softly against the floor. She looked toward the lobby, where Adrian had gone, then back to Maya. Then she moved quickly, faster than Maya thought someone her age could. She stopped beside Maya's table, leaning down, her hands shaking. Up close, Maya could smell valerian and something else, like old paper and sleepless nights. "Listen to me, my dear. Listen very carefully, my dear." She reached into her worn canvas bag with trembling fingers and pulled out something wrapped in a faded cloth. She pressed it into Maya's hand with surprising strength. It was a thick bundle of cash banded tightly together. Maya's mouth opened. What? "Call a cab," Helena breathed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Not to your home, not to his home, somewhere else, anywhere else. Go through the back, through the service hallway, the kitchen, wherever you can, but do not walk out the main doors with him. Do you understand me?" Maya stared at her, frozen. I don't... Helena's grip on her hand tightened like a vice. "My daughter," she whispered. "My daughter married him." She swallowed, struggling to keep her composure. "She's dead now, and officially it was an accident. They called it tragic. They called him a widower. My dear, her voice broke. There are no accidents around that man or his family. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs so hard it hurt. Her tongue went dry. That's not possible. You're mistaken. Adrian would never. Helena shook her head violently. They will take everything, she hissed. Your home, your name, your sanity. And then one day they will arrange something that looks like fate. A car, a boat, a staircase, a gas leak, a convenient tragedy, and the city will send flowers to the grieving husband and the respectable aunt. She looked toward the lobby again. You don't have time to argue with me. Please, use this money, leave this place, and whatever you do, don't sign anything again. She straightened up abruptly. Maya tried to say something, anything. Wait, what was your... But Helena was already moving away, her steps unsteady but determined. She walked straight past the central aisle of tables and out through a side door near the bar. Maya sat there stunned, the bundle of cash heavy in her hand. For a moment, she actually wondered if this was some cruel prank. Was someone filming this? Her gaze drifted to the entrance, and then her blood ran cold. 2 large men had just stepped inside, both bald, wearing dark jackets that didn't suit the elegant atmosphere at all. Their shoulders were too wide, their movements too deliberate. They weren't looking for a table, they were scanning the room. Their eyes slid past the wealthy couples, the waiters, the bar, until they landed on her. The shorter one nudged the taller one, and both of them fixed their gaze firmly on Maya. No, 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 no. She'd never seen them before, but something in their eyes, flat, assessing, indifferent, made her gut twist. Everything inside her screamed, "Run!" Her chair scraped the floor as she shot up, clutching her bag and stuffing the cash inside with fumbling hands. Someone gasped as she almost collided with a waiter. She muttered a choked "sorry" and bolted toward the side corridor where she'd seen a sign for the restrooms. Her heart hammered in her throat. She pushed open the door to the women's restroom, stumbled inside, and threw the deadbolt so hard the metal clanged. She leaned against the door, chest heaving. What is happening? Oh my God, what is happening? For a few seconds, all she heard was her own ragged breathing. Then she forced herself to move. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking so much she could barely unlock the screen. Taxi app. She opened it and typed the address of the only place that felt even remotely safe right now. Ink and Ivy Bookshop. She didn't dare put her apartment. If Helena was telling the truth, if any of this was real, then her home wasn't safe. Nothing felt safe. The app pinged. Driver found, blue Honda, plate ending in 492. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Maya looked around the restroom. It was immaculate. White tile, gold fixtures, a huge mirror reflecting a pale woman with wide, frantic eyes. That woman didn't look like herself. She noticed a small, frosted window high up on the wall. She climbed onto the marble sink counter and tried to push it open. It moved slightly, but there were thick metal bars outside. No escape that way. Her phone buzzed again. Your driver is waiting outside the Silver Elm. Outside. Through the main entrance. Past whoever those men were. She swallowed, climbed down, and stared at the door. She had to go out now, while maybe the restaurant was still normal. Maybe she could slip out in the crowd. Her hand closed around the deadbolt. She took a breath, and just as she reached for it, the handle knob jerked softly from the other side. Her heart stopped. The handle turned once, then again. Then a familiar voice spoke from behind the door, smooth and calm. Maya, are you in there? Adrian. She swallowed. Why did his voice suddenly sound wrong? Yeah, she managed, trying to steady her voice. I just needed a minute. From outside, she heard another voice, the restaurant manager. Is everything all right, Mr. Blackwell? She's fine, Adrian replied, his tone light. She gets a bit overwhelmed sometimes. Long week at work. I'll talk to her. A pause. Then a tiny metallic sound at the handle. Maya froze. It was the sound of a key being inserted from the outside. What? No! She shouted, instinct taking over. Adrian, don't! But it was too late. The lock clicked. The door opened inward, hitting her as she stumbled back. In the doorway stood the restaurant manager, his face no longer warm and polite, but cold and tight. Behind him, Adrian. Adrian with his expensive coat and gentle eyes. Only now his eyes were not gentle at all. They were sharp, assessing, almost irritated. Sweetheart, he said quietly, what are you doing? Maya glanced past him into the corridor. The two bald men from the entrance were standing there, waiting, watching. Her throat closed. I don't feel well, she stammered. I need to leave. Alone. Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course you don't feel well. Someone scared you. That old woman, right? He sighed, almost sadly. Helena Ward. We've had trouble with her before. Maya's heart skipped. We? She repeated faintly. Miss Ward has issues, the restaurant manager said stiffly, as if reciting a practiced line. She's had outbursts in public places, accusing people of crimes. We try not to serve her anymore, but she sneaks in. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was soothing a child. Love, she lost her daughter in a boat accident. You know how grief can twist someone's mind. She fixates, she obsesses, she's convinced I caused it. Maya's head spun. Did you? His jaw tightened for half a second. Then he chuckled softly. Of course not. He reached for her arm. She flinched away. Something flickered in his eyes, annoyance quickly masked. This isn't the place to have this conversation, he murmured. Come on, let's go home. We'll call my aunt. She'll explain everything. You signed all the documents yourself, remember? There's nothing to worry about. You just stressed. He said the word the way someone might say hysterical. Behind him, the two bald men took one step forward. Something primal kicked in. No, Maya whispered. Then louder, no, I'm not going anywhere with you. The restaurant manager's eyes hardened. Ma'am, you're causing a scene. There's no scene, Adrian said smoothly. Just my wife struggling with her nerves. I'll handle it. He reached for her again, and that's when Maya saw it. Mounted on the wall next to the door, half hidden behind an ornate sconce, was a small glass-covered box with a red button inside. Fire alarm. An insane idea shot through her mind. Before she could talk herself out of it, she swung her handbag with all her strength at the glass. The first blow bounced off with a dull thud. Maya, don't, Adrian said sharply now. Enough. She hit it again, harder. The glass cracked, spiderweb lines spreading across it. The restaurant manager lunged forward. Stop! The two bald men were moving now. Maya screamed, not words, just sound, and slammed her bag again with everything she had. The glass shattered. She punched the red button. The alarm exploded to life with a shrill, piercing wail that seemed to tear through her skull. Red lights began to flash. Somewhere above the ceiling, sprinklers clicked and sputtered to life. Chaos. Voices rose into panicked shouts. Chairs scraped. Glasses smashed. People surged all at once toward the exits like a living wave. Everyone stay calm, the manager yelled. Probably a false... and then the smell of smoke hit. It wasn't much, just a faint, bitter scent wafting in from the kitchen hallway. Maybe something had really burned. Maybe she'd just gotten very, very lucky. Nobody believed in false alarms anymore. "Fire!" someone screamed. That did it. The restaurant dissolved into pure panic. Adrian swore under his breath. "Idiot," he hissed, not at the staff, but at her. The bald men were distracted for a second as guests shoved tables and chairs in their way, some knocking over a display of glassware with a crash. Maya didn't wait. She bolted. She pushed past Adrian, past the manager, into the hallway now choking with shouting people and flashing red light. Someone elbowed her. Someone stepped on her foot. She didn't care. She saw the side exit sign glowing green. She ran. Down the stairs, out through the emergency door into a narrow alley behind the restaurant. The air outside was cold and damp. Her breath came out in big white clouds. At the mouth of the alley, she saw a blue Honda idling at the curb. The license plate ended with 492. Her ride. She sprinted. The driver, a man in his 40s with tired eyes, rolled down the window. Maya? Yes! She practically threw herself into the back seat. "Please, go, now, just drive." He stared at her a second too long, at her wild hair, her dress, the panic in her eyes. Then he put the car in gear. "Rough date night?" he muttered. "You have no idea," she whispered. The bookstore felt like a different world at night. Ink and Ivy was dark, except for the faint yellow light from the street lamp outside and the glowing exit sign in the back. Maya fumbled with her keys and let herself in through the staff door. The familiar smell of paper, ink, and coffee wrapped around her like a blanket. She locked the door behind her. Deadbolt, chain, everything. Only then did she let herself sink to the floor in the tiny break room, back against the wall, chest heaving. She pulled out the bundle of cash and stared at it. Helena's words echoed in her head. "They will take everything. There are no accidents around that man. Don't sign anything again." She almost laughed. Too late. She remembered the stack of documents on her coffee table, the wine, the way she'd signed page after page where he'd placed sticky notes with arrows. Had she just handed him her life? Her phone buzzed, making her flinch. It was a notification from her bank app. Her stomach twisted. She opened it. "Important. We have temporarily restricted certain actions on your accounts. Please contact our fraud department." Her fingers shook as she opened her online banking on the store laptop. She typed in her credentials 3 times before getting them right. When she finally got into her account, she felt sick. Her main balance was still there, but there was a red banner at the top. Account temporarily frozen due to report from authorized co-owner Adrian Blackwell. Reason: suspicion of mental instability and financial recklessness. Mental instability. He had put her on record as unstable. Her vision blurred. This wasn't just paranoia. This wasn't just an overly worried aunt or a misunderstanding. They were cutting her off from her own money, from her own life. Her safe universe of books and quiet coffee and handwritten recommendation cards shattered like glass. She stared at the screen until her eyes hurt. Then a single thought pushed through the numbness. He knows this place. He knows I love it. He knows I run here when I'm upset. He'll come, or he'll send someone. She couldn't stay. But where could she go? Her apartment, her parents' apartment, the old place with creaky floors, where her height marks were still on the kitchen wall, the only thing she truly owned in the world. Surely he couldn't. Another cruel thought cut through that hope. You signed everything. Maya closed the laptop with shaking hands. She stuffed it into her backpack along with the cash bundle, her phone charger, and a change of clothes she kept for long shifts. She slipped out through the back alley, called another cab, and gave the driver the address of her parents' building. All the way there, the city lights smeared into streaks through her tears. The building looked like always. Old bricks, iron balconies, the flickering hallway light that the landlord had promised to fix for 3 months. Down the stairs, past the second floor, past the first. "Maya!" Adrian shouted behind her, the softness gone from his tone. It had turned sharp, commanding. "Stop, now!" Cassandra said something too, but Maya didn't hear it. Blood roared in her ears. She burst out of the front door and into the cold night air, not caring where she was going, only away. She didn't stop running until her lungs burned. She ducked into a side alley between 2 buildings and slid down the wall, hugging her backpack to her chest like a shield. Her whole life had been peeled away in a matter of hours. Her home, her money, her reputation, her sense of reality. She was no one, and to the official record, she was crazy. She didn't know how long she sat there, shivering, until the panic settled into something harder, sharper. Not fear, anger. They had stolen her life on paper, fine, but they'd made one mistake. They had left her breathing. And as long as she was breathing, she could fight back. Her mind went to the one person who had believed her before she even knew there was something to fear. Helena Ward. The woman with the trembling hands and the bundle of cash. The woman who had lost her daughter to these people. She pulled out her phone. She still had Helena's number saved from the bookstore's order history when she'd once called to reserve a special edition. Her thumb hovered over the call button for a second. Then she pressed it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maya's chest tightened. What if she didn't answer? What if... Hello? The voice was thin, shaky, but unmistakably Helena's. Maya swallowed a sob. "Miss Ward, it's Maya from Ink and Ivy, the one from the restaurant." There was a sharp inhale on the other end. "You're alive! Thank God! Where are you? Are you safe?" Maya's voice broke as she tried to explain everything in jagged sentences. The frozen accounts, the locks, the lease, the deed with her own signature, Cassandra's pitying voice in the hallway. Cassandra didn't interrupt. She listened in silence. When Maya finished, there was a pause. Then Helena said, in a tone Maya hadn't heard from her before, steady, cold, unafraid, "Tell me where you are. I'm coming to you. And this time, we're not running. This time, we're going after them." Helena's apartment was small, cluttered, full of books piled in every corner and framed photos on every wall. One face appeared again and again. A young woman with big, bright eyes, curly hair, and an easy smile. Sometimes she was holding a diploma, sometimes a cat, sometimes a bouquet of daisies. "That's Lena," Helena said quietly when she noticed Maya staring. "My daughter." They sat at the small kitchen table, tea steamed between them. The curtains were drawn tight. Maya's hands still shook when she lifted her cup. "What happened to her?" Maya asked softly. Helena's fingers tightened around her own mug. Her knuckles went white. "He came into our lives like he always does. Charming, respectful, polite. My Lena met him at a charity." Maya ran up the stairs, her heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and stubborn hope. This was hers. Whatever else they took, they couldn't erase her life here. She reached her door, apartment 4B. Her cheap wreath from the craft store still hung there. She fumbled for her keys, hands cold and numb. The key didn't go in. She froze. She tried again, harder. It slid in halfway and then hit something solid. No, no, no. She tried the second lock, the third. None of them opened. Someone had changed the locks. Her breath hitched. For a second, she just stood there, hand on the doorknob, feeling the world tilt. Then rage rose up like fire. She banged on the door. "Open the door! This is my apartment!" A latch clicked behind her. A door across the hall opened a crack. Her neighbor, Mr. Dorsey, a retired music teacher who always smelled like pipe tobacco, peered out. "Maya?" he said, blinking. "What's going on? Why are you yelling?" Someone changed my locks," she stammered. "Mr. Dorsey, did you see anyone? A locksmith? Did someone—" Before he could answer, the door to her own apartment opened, but it wasn't her door anymore, and it wasn't Adrian standing there. A completely unfamiliar woman in her 50s appeared in the doorway, wearing an oversized t-shirt and leggings, holding a mug of something steaming. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun. Behind her, Maya saw a different couch, different curtains, a different lamp where her mom's old reading chair used to be. "Yes?" the woman snapped. "What's all the noise? I have work in the morning." Maya stared. "What are you doing in my apartment?" "Your apartment? This is my rental. You must have the wrong floor." "No," she whispered. Her voice rose to a desperate pitch. "No, this is my home. I grew up here. This is 4B. The woman rolled her eyes. "Lady, I signed a lease 2 weeks ago with Cassandra Blackwell. All official. Deposit, contract, everything. You look— I'm sorry, but are you okay?" Mr. Dorsey stepped fully into the hallway now. "Maya, is that true?" he asked gently. "You sold the place?" I never sold it. I would never sell it. I didn't sign—" Her voice faltered. She had signed something. Documents. On the couch. After wine. Just routine post-wedding paperwork. Her stomach flipped. The unfamiliar woman sniffed. "I'm calling the building supervisor. I'm not dealing with this. I know what crazy looks like." The word hit like a slap. Crazy. Mentally unstable. That's what the bank had written. What Adrian had written. "I'm not crazy," Maya whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Heavy steps echoed up the stairwell. Mr. Dorsey glanced over the railing. "Ah, that's them," he said with relief. "Maybe they can sort this out. I saw them downstairs asking for you. Your husband and his aunt, I think." Maya turned slowly. On the landing below, Adrian and Cassandra Blackwell were climbing the stairs. Adrian looked concerned, gentle, like a worried spouse. Cassandra was composed, elegant in a dark coat, her hair in a perfect low bun, pearls at her ears. Her expression was carefully constructed pity. Maya's legs felt weak, but she kept moving. "Her office is on the 3rd floor," Helena whispered. "End of the southern hallway." They went up the stairs, every creak of the steps sounding like gunfire in the empty building. On the 3rd floor, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The corridor was lined with closed doors and nameplates. Blackwell, Cassandra, Deputy Commissioner. They stopped. Maya's palms were slick with sweat. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal key. She hadn't told Helena this part yet. Earlier that day, before everything blew up, her coworker Nora had pressed something into her hand outside the bookstore when Cassandra pulled her public stunt. "I shouldn't have this," Nora had whispered. "My aunt works here as a cleaner. Cassandra's door sticks, so they made a copy. If you ever need help. She said this key works on every lock in this hallway, just in case." Nora had been pale with fear. Maya hadn't understood the full weight of it then. Now she did. She slid the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying, soft click. They slipped inside. The office was exactly what Maya expected: minimal, sterile, expensive. A large dark wood desk, a leather chair, 2 visitor chairs, a wall of shelves with binders and law books. One wall had plaques and tasteful framed certificates. They started searching. Drawers, cabinets, bookshelves. Nothing. No ledger, Maya whispered, panic rising. What if she moved it? Helena was running her fingers along the shelf supports, eyes narrowed. These people like symbols, she muttered. They like shrines to themselves. Maya's gaze drifted to the wall of plaques and photos behind the desk. Cassandra shaking hands with the mayor, Cassandra receiving an award, Cassandra on a panel about ethical asset management. Everything was perfectly aligned, except one frame. In the bottom row, slightly to the left, one large photo hung just a little crooked, barely noticeable. But Maya noticed. She walked over and touched it. Helena turned. What is it? That frame, Maya whispered. It's off by a few millimeters. And? And this woman is a control freak. She doesn't leave things crooked. She gripped the sides of the frame and gently pulled. With a tiny click, the frame swung forward like a door. Behind it was a small wall safe. Helena exhaled a shaky laugh. Of course, she murmured. The safe had a combination dial, old-fashioned. Maya's mind raced. What number matters more to her than anything else, she said under her breath, scanning the room. Her eyes fell on a heavy brass plaque on the adjacent wall. Department of Municipal Assets, founded 1973. She didn't even hesitate. She turned the dial. 1973. Something clunked inside the door. Maya pulled it open. Inside wasn't gold or passports or loose cash, just one object, a small, plain, gray notebook. She reached in as if it might bite her and placed it on the desk. They opened it. The first page had only a date. The rest of the pages were columns: name, address, relation, primary operator, status, notes. Maya's heart hammered as her eyes flew down the first page. Primary operator, A.B. Everywhere. Adrian Blackwell. The names below blurred as tears filled her eyes. Elderly men, widowed women, middle-aged singles with inherited apartments. Addresses she half recognized. On the fourth line, she saw it. Lena Ward, 1BR, Harborview Heights. Status, completed. Accident, boating. Notes, no active relatives on title. Mother compensated informally. Helena's hand flew to her mouth. A muffled sound escaped her, part sob, part scream. But she didn't break, not completely. Keep going, she whispered hoarsely. We need all of it, not just mine. They flipped pages, case after case. 2 overdoses, 1 fall down the stairs, 1 gas leak, 1 hit and run. Each with the same operator, each with the same cold little note confirming completion. On the last page, near the bottom, Maya saw her own address. Maya Reed, 2BR, Willow Street. Inherited. Status, in progress. Notes, deed transfer complete. Account control initiated. Incident planning open. Her head swam. She wasn't a wife. She wasn't even a person to them. She was a line item not yet crossed out. We have to take this, Maya whispered. Too risky. She'll know it's missing. She'll cover everything before we can act. Maya fumbled for her phone, hands shaking. Then we copy it, now. Helena kept watch at the window while Maya frantically took pictures, page after page, every column, every signature, every note. The shutter sound on her phone seemed deafening in the silence. She was halfway through when footsteps echoed in the corridor. Helena stiffened. Someone's coming. Maya took 3 more rapid shots, then closed the ledger and shoved it back into the safe, closing it and swinging the frame back into place. The footsteps stopped, right outside the door. The handle turned. The door opened. Adrian stood there. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't pretending concern anymore. His eyes burned with cold fury. "What happened to her?" Maya asked softly. Helena's fingers tightened around her own mug. Her knuckles went white. "He came into our lives like he always does. Charming, respectful, polite. Mylena met him at a charity event." "Oh, good," Mr. Dorsey said. "We were just—" "Mr. Dorsey," Cassandra said warmly, touching his arm, "I'm so sorry about the noise. Maya's been going through something difficult. We appreciate your understanding." Mr. Dorsey nodded slowly. "Of course, Ms. Blackwell. Well, she seemed confused about the apartment." Cassandra sighed, her face tightening in a look of practiced sadness. "I was afraid of this. Maya dear, we talked about this, remember? About your debts, the risk of losing your place at auction. We agreed that temporarily transferring the deed to me was the safest way." "What debts?" Maya shouted. "I don't have debts." Adrian stepped closer, his eyes shining with hurt. "Maya, love, this isn't the way. Yelling at the neighbors, forgetting your own decisions." He turned to Mr. Dorsey, his voice soft. "She stopped sleeping weeks ago. The stress after the wedding, it's been a lot. She signed everything herself, but now she doesn't remember. That's why I talked to the bank, to freeze her accounts before she did something irreversible." "I didn't," Maya started, but Cassandra was already pulling something from her sleek leather folder. A deed transfer, official looking, stamped, signed. "Mr. Dorsey," Cassandra said quietly, holding it so everyone could see, "I'm only showing you this so you understand we haven't harmed her. We're trying to protect her." There, on the last page, in black ink, was Maya's own sprawling signature. Maya Reed. Her knees went weak. The hallway tilted. She remembered the night. Wine, laughter, his pen in her hand, sticky notes marking places to sign, her head on his shoulder as she scribbled. She had done this, with her own hand. "You tricked me," she whispered hoarsely. Adrian flinched, pain flashing in his eyes. "No, you're just overwhelmed. You said yourself you didn't want to lose the apartment if something went wrong. This way, the property stays in the family, with my aunt, someone responsible." Responsible. Like freezing her bank accounts, like renting out her home, like writing the story before she'd even heard it. Cassandra stepped closer. She reached out and took Maya's arm with a gentle, firm grip. "Come home with us," she said, her voice low and so sweet it felt poisonous. "We'll get you help, rest, some therapy. The bank will unfreeze the accounts when they see you're stable again. Fighting us here, in front of the neighbors, it only makes things worse, dear." The woman in Maya's apartment watched with narrowed eyes. Mr. Dorsey looked uncomfortable, caught between sympathy and doubt. This was the narrative they were building for her. Crazy, unstable, unreliable, and the more she argued, the more she fit their script. Maya jerked her arm out of Cassandra's grip. "Don't touch me." Her voice cracked. In Cassandra's eyes, for a split second, the mask slipped. Behind it was nothing but cold calculation. "We can do this the easy way or the formal way, and you really don't want the formal way." The formal way. She saw herself in a hospital gown, in a room with no locks on the inside, with records stamped psychotic break, delusional, unreliable witness. Helena's words echoed again. They will take everything, then arrange the tragedy. No, not her, not like this. She looked at the narrow staircase behind them, the way down, the way out. Adrian reached for her again, gently. Maya, please, don't make this a scene. You're scaring people. Something in Maya snapped. If I stay with you, she said quietly, her voice trembling but clear, I won't be alive long enough to scare anyone. And with that, she spun, grabbed the railing, and ran. The quiet, gentle woman who loved old poetry and herbal tea grabbed the heavy brass paperweight from the desk, a miniature city skyline, and slammed it into the side of Adrian's head with all the strength grief and rage had given her over the years. The sound was awful, thick and dull. Adrian's eyes went wide, his grip loosened. He staggered and collapsed against the side of the desk, then slid to the floor, clutching his head. Maya stared. Helena dropped the paperweight, breathing hard. Run, Helena said. What about... Run! Maya grabbed her phone, her bag, and bolted for the door. Nora pressed herself against the wall as Maya flew past her, tears streaking down her face. Go, Nora whispered. I'm so sorry. Maya didn't answer. She ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs. Shouts erupted behind her. Security! 3rd floor! Now! She heard radio chatter, the thud of heavy boots. Her only thought was get out. On the 1st floor, she saw the main glass doors. A heavy chain and padlock barred them. Her chest tightened. Backstairs, she muttered to herself, spinning. She almost collided with Helena at the bottom of the stairwell. Here, Helena gasped, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward a small door under the stairs. A sign on it read, Supplies, Maintenance. Helena yanked it open. Get inside. What? No, we both... They're coming for you, Helena said, eyes fierce. For what you saw, for what you have on your phone. I am a nuisance to them. You are a threat. They'll never stop if you're free. The quiet, gentle woman who loved old poetry and herbal tea grabbed the heavy brass paperweight from the desk, a miniature city skyline, and slammed it into the side of Adrian's head with all the strength grief and rage had given her over the years. The sound was awful, thick and dull. Adrian's eyes went wide, his grip loosened. He staggered and collapsed against the side of the desk, then slid to the floor, clutching his head. Maya stared. Helena dropped the paperweight, breathing hard. Run, Helena said. What about... Run! Maya grabbed her phone, her bag, and bolted for the door. Nora pressed herself against the wall as Maya flew past her, tears streaking down her face. Go, Nora whispered. I'm so sorry. Maya didn't answer. She ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs. Shouts erupted behind her. Security! 3rd floor! Now! She heard radio chatter, the thud of heavy boots. Her only thought was get out. On the 1st floor, she saw the main glass doors. A heavy chain and padlock barred them. Her chest tightened. Backstairs, she muttered to herself, spinning. She almost collided with Helena at the bottom of the stairwell. Here, Helena gasped, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward a small door under the stairs. A sign on it read, Supplies, Maintenance. Helena yanked it open. Get inside. What? No, we both... They're coming for you, Helena said, eyes fierce. For what you saw, for what you have on your phone. I am a nuisance to them. You are a threat. They'll never stop if you're free. Maya shook her head, tears spilling over. I'm not leaving you. Helena smiled sadly. You have no choice. She shoved Maya inside. The small storage room smelled like dust and old mops. Buckets and cleaning supplies lined the walls. Maya tried to push the door open again, but Helena held it from the other side. "Tomorrow," Helena whispered through the crack. "There's a public forum at the Grand Civic Hall. Cassandra is getting some nonsense award for integrity in urban development. The mayor will be there, journalists, cameras. You go there, you stand up and you tell them about the Gray Book. You show them every picture you took. Do you understand?" "Maya, please." "Promise me," Helena insisted. Maya swallowed. I promise." Helena's voice softened. "Good girl." Footsteps thundered down the stairs. "Third floor reports an assault on Mr. Blackwell. Suspect is an older woman and a younger one. Move." Helena stepped away from the door. Maya put her eye to the keyhole. She saw Helena standing in the stairwell, small and straight-backed as two burly security guards came around the corner. They grabbed her arms. She didn't fight. She just turned her head slightly, as if she knew exactly where the keyhole was, and gave a tiny nod. Then they dragged her away. Her footsteps faded. Maya stayed in that closet all night. She listened to the building gradually fill with mourning voices, phones ringing, doors opening, printers whirring. She waited until she was sure people were too busy to notice one more employee-shaped shadow in the corridor. At 8:30 a.m., she knocked quietly. Someone on the other side grumbled. A cleaner opened the door with a frown. "How did— Door stuck," Maya lied weakly, slipping past her. She walked straight out of the building, head down, heart pounding. Nobody stopped her. Nobody knew that the most dangerous thing in the city at that moment was the cracked phone in her pocket. She only had a few hours until the forum. She found a cheap copy shop 2 blocks from the Civic Hall and printed 5 full sets of the Gray Book pages from her phone. Every case, every line where Adrian Blackwell and Cassandra Blackwell appeared, every note about accidents and in progress. Her last 20 bills from Helena's bundle went into paying for the prints. Worth it. She called in a favor from a customer she barely knew, a freelance blogger who always talked too loudly about local corruption and begged her to subscribe to his channel. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, it's Maya from Ink and Ivy," she said, voice shaking. "Do you still like exposing powerful people?" There was a pause, then a careful, excited tone. "I like where this is going. Come to the Grand Civic Hall, noon. Bring your camera and your courage." The Civic Hall was already buzzing with people when she arrived. Banners hung from the ceiling, celebrating integrity and public service. Maya almost laughed. Almost. She stood in the back, clutching her folder. Her heart hammered so loudly she thought people might hear it. The mayor sat on the stage, flanked by officials. Cassandra, in a cream suit and pearls, sat in the center, smiling serenely. Adrian sat in the front row, a bandage visible near his hairline, his expression carefully neutral. When the master of ceremonies announced Cassandra's name, the crowd clapped. Cameras flashed. Cassandra stepped up to the podium, smile practiced, hands composed. "Ladies and gentlemen, our city is built on trust, and it has been my honor—" "Trust?" The word rang out from the back like a shot. The room went quiet. Heads turned. Maya stepped into the aisle, walking toward the stage, her folder clutched to her chest. Her legs felt like they were made of rubber, but she kept moving. One step, another, another. Security guards tensed along the walls. Cassandra's eyes widened slightly when she recognized her, then her smile snapped back into place. "Miss Reed, we can talk later. This is not the—" "This is exactly the time," Maya cut in, her voice hoarse but amplified now as she strode up the side steps onto the stage. A guard moved to block her. The blogger she'd called earlier rushed forward in the aisle, camera raised, already streaming. "This is live," he shouted. "You put your hands on her, the whole city sees it." For a moment, security hesitated. The mayor frowned. "What is this?" he snapped. Maya turned to the audience. "My name is Maya Reed. she said, gripping the microphone like a lifeline. 2 weeks ago, I married Adrian Blackwell, the nephew of the woman you're about to honor. Adrian stood abruptly, his mask slipping. She's unwell, Adrian shouted. She's making things up. She's been harassing. Unwell, Maya repeated, her voice sharp. That's what they put in the bank report. Mentally unstable. That's how they explained the deed transfer I signed while drunk and trusting my husband. That's how they justified freezing my own money, throwing me out of my parents' apartment, and calling me a thief in front of my neighbors. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cassandra's jaw tightened. Mayor, I must insist You want to talk about integrity, Maya said, turning to her, then back to the crowd. She opened her folder, hands only trembling a little now. Let's look at what integrity looks like in Ms. Blackwell's private records. She held up the first page of the Grey Book photocopy so the front rows could see. This, she said, is a page from a ledger kept in Ms. Blackwell's office, hidden in a wall safe behind a framed photo. She started reading. Name, James Carter, age 79, apartment 12B, King Street, status, completed, disappeared, operator, AB, Adrian Blackwell. A man in the back row stood up abruptly. That's my father-in-law, he shouted. He went missing 2 years ago. They said he wandered off. Gasps. Maya turned a page. Samantha Lee, age 45, died in a fall down the stairs. Status, completed. Accident. Operator, AB. Note, unwell sister. Another voice, trembling and angry. That was my sister. Maya's throat tightened, but she pushed on. Lena Ward, age 29, died in boating accident. Status, completed. Accident, boating. Operator, AB. Note, mother compensated informally. At the back, a man lifted a large framed photo above his head. A young woman's laughing face looked out over the crowd. Lena, with her bright eyes and curly hair. That's my cousin, he shouted, voice breaking. Her mother is in jail right now because she tried to stop them. Maya raised the final pages. And here, she said, her voice cracking only slightly, is my entry. She read, letting the words become nails in the coffin they were building for themselves. Name, Maya Reed, apartment, Willow Street. Status, in progress. Operator, AB. Note, deed transfer complete. Account control initiated. Incident planning open. The room exploded. Shouts, accusations, people pointing at Cassandra, at Adrian. Journalists surged closer, cameras up, microphones thrust out. The mayor looked like he was about to be sick. Cassandra's face had gone completely still, her lips pressed into a thin line. Adrian tried to push through the crowd toward the stage, shouting about lies and manipulation, but too many eyes had already seen too much. The chief of police, sitting near the aisle, stood with a grim expression. He walked to the stage and took the folder gently from Maya's hands. He flipped through the pages, his face growing darker with every line. He looked at Cassandra. Ms. Blackwell, he said quietly, but the microphone picked up every word. I'm going to have to ask you to come with us to answer some questions. You can't be serious, Cassandra spat. This is fabricated, a performance. Those documents will be verified, the chief said, including the safe in your office. He nodded to 2 officers. They approached Cassandra. She stepped back. For the first time, the mask cracked fully. Pure hatred burned in her eyes as she looked at Maya. You stupid, ungrateful little nobody, she hissed. You think you've won something? You have no idea what— The officers took her arms. Adrian lunged forward. You can't arrest my aunt. He was cut off by another pair of officers grabbing him. Mr. Blackwell, the chief said, voice cold. "You're on almost every line of this ledger. I suggest you save your explanations for the interrogation room." The hall was chaos now, people shouting, filming, crying. Maya swayed where she stood. The adrenaline drained out of her all at once. She barely felt it when the blogger gently took her elbow. "You just blew up half the city government live. This is going everywhere." Maya managed a hollow, exhausted laugh. "Good," she muttered. "Let them choke on it." It took days for the dust to settle, weeks for the legal machinery to really start grinding. Investigations were opened, records were seized. The safe in Cassandra's office, exactly where Maya had said, was opened in front of multiple witnesses, and there it was, the gray book. Handwriting, stamps, notes, dates, all matching Maya's copies and photos. The more they dug, the more rot they found. Property deals with missing people, accidents that had never been fully explained, money trails lining up a little too perfectly. Helena was released within 3 days. All charges against her were dropped. The officer who came to get her from holding looked almost embarrassed as he handed her back her belongings. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "for whatever it's worth, I'm sorry about your daughter, and for not seeing it sooner." Helena didn't answer. She just nodded once and walked out into the daylight where Maya was waiting. They didn't hug right away. They just looked at each other. Then Helena reached out and took Maya's hand. "Lena would have liked you," she said softly. Maya swallowed hard. "I wish I'd met her." "In a way, you did. She's the reason I recognized what they were doing. She's the reason you're still alive." Maya squeezed her hand. Behind him, in the hallway, Maya saw Nora, her coworker, standing there, terrified, her eyes red from crying. "I'm sorry," Nora choked. "They knew about the key. They threatened my aunt. I didn't know what else to do. I'm so sorry, Maya." Adrian stepped fully into the office, shutting the door behind him with a soft click. "So," he said. His voice was flat. "You just couldn't leave it alone." Maya's heartbeat pounded so hard she felt it in her teeth. He looked at Helena, at Maya, at the desk where the ledger had been moments ago. His gaze dropped to Maya's phone. He moved fast. He grabbed her wrist with brutal force and twisted. Pain shot up her arm. The phone slipped from her fingers and skidded across the floor. "You have no idea what you've stepped into," he hissed, inches from her face. "You think this is a game of justice? Of truth? This city runs on what my aunt does. Half the people who shake her hand at events owe her their careers. You are an ant under a boot, Maya, and you just convinced the boot to look down." Maya whimpered as his grip tightened. Then something happened he clearly didn't expect. Helena moved. "Then this," she said, gesturing to the courthouse steps, to the reporters swarming everywhere, to the news vans and cameras. "This is for her." A week later, a judge declared all of Cassandra's and Adrian's property transfers null and void. One by one, people got calls. Mr. Carter's son-in-law, Samantha Lee's sister, Lena's cousin, and Maya. She stood in the hallway of her old building again, in front of 4B. The keys in her hand shook, only a little. She unlocked the door. The temporary tenant had already moved out. The apartment was mostly empty again, except for a lingering smell of someone else's cooking and a cheap plug-in air freshener. She opened the windows wide. Cool air rushed in, clearing the space. She went straight to the closet where her mother had always kept the step stool, then to the cupboard under the sink where her father's old tools should have been. They were still there, pieces of her real life, untouched. She smiled through tears. Later that day, she walked into Ink and Ivy, bracing herself. Mr. Bernard Cole, the store owner, came out from the office, looking awkward. "Maya," he started, "about that night outside. I shouldn't have yelled. I was under a lot of pressure. The cameras." "It's fine," she said gently. "You were scared for your shop." "No," he said firmly, "it's not fine. I fired you in front of half the block because I believed a story from a woman who shakes politicians' hands, and I ignored the girl who built this shop's entire identity." He sighed. "I'm sorry. I can't undo that, but I can ask you to come back. Same role, same salary, and a raise." She blinked. "A raise?" He nodded. "Someone who takes down a corruption ring in her spare time is clearly worth more than I'm paying." She laughed, the sound surprising even herself. "I'll think about it," she said, but her eyes were already saying yes. That evening, back in her apartment, Maya did what she did best. She created something beautiful out of broken pieces. She spent her last bit of money on flowers from a wholesaler Nora knew, white lilies, eucalyptus, and delicate baby's breath. She filled vase after vase, placing them around the apartment, on the windowsill where her mother had kept her spider plant, on the kitchen table where her father used to read the paper, on the bookshelf where family photos would go again. With every cut of the stem, every adjustment of a bloom, something inside her settled. The apartment no longer felt contaminated by Cassandra's lies or invaded by Adrian's plans. It was hers again. Her hands moved with calm purpose. Her heart still hurt. Her trust was bruised and raw. The future, for now, was a question mark. But she was here, alive, standing in the ruins of their scheme, not under it. When she was done, she stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by white and green, by life and softness. She took a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, it didn't hurt.
Thank you for watching. Your time and support truly mean a lot. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and allows me to bring you even better videos. Stay inspired, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next video.